They called him the Mad Sultan. He ruled over millions, yet trusted no one. And when his paranoia peaked, he ordered 500 women to be drowned. Then he vanished. This isn't a movie. It's real history. What makes a man kill his entire harem in a single night? And how does a powerful ruler vanish without a trace? Today, we're diving into the chilling story of Sultan Ibrahim I, the most unpredictable, paranoid, and dangerous ruler the Ottoman Empire ever had. We'll explore how he rose to power, why his fear of betrayal turned into a bloodbath, and what actually happened in that palace before he disappeared forever. Stick around, because the further we go, the darker it gets. They called him Ibrahim the Mad, but he didn't start out that way. Born in 1615, Prince Ibrahim of the Ottoman Empire was never supposed to rule. He was the youngest son of Sultan Ahmed I, a ruler remembered for building the famous Blue Mosque in Istanbul. When Ahmed died, the throne passed through a series of unpredictable power grabs, first to his brother, then to Ibrahim's older siblings. But for most of his life, Ibrahim was imprisoned. Literally. In the Ottoman system, it was common for princes to be locked in a special part of the palace called the cage, a secluded suite of rooms where potential heirs were kept under watch to prevent rebellion. For 23 years, Ibrahim lived in that cage. Imagine that. 2 decades of isolation, no fresh air, no freedom, no friends. Just silence, fear, and the constant knowledge that one wrong move could get you executed. Historians believe this is where the madness began. By the time his brother Sultan Murad IV died in 1640, Ibrahim was the only male heir left. But when messengers came to release him, he thought it was a trick, an excuse to kill him. He refused to come out of the cage until he physically saw Murad's dead body. That's how terrified and paranoid he had become. And yet, within days, this traumatized man was placed on the throne of the Ottoman Empire. Now, let's pause and think about this. The Ottoman Empire wasn't just a country. It was a superpower, stretching across modern-day Turkey, North Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Europe. Millions of people, hundreds of ethnicities, dozens of languages, all under the control of a man who had never ruled a single person in his life, who had never even stepped outside his gilded cage for decades. So what did he do? First, nothing. For the first few months, the real power was held by his mother, Kozum Sultan, a politically savvy woman who basically ran the empire behind the scenes. She was smart, experienced, and had no illusions about her son's fragile mind. In many ways, she held the empire together. But as Ibrahim settled into power, something began to shift. Freed from captivity and now ruling over an empire, he began to indulge. And I mean really indulge. He became obsessed with women. Not just a little obsessed. It's said that he filled the Topkapi Palace with hundreds of concubines, women brought in from across the empire. Circassians, Georgians, Armenians, Albanians, Italians. His harem grew so fast that it started overflowing into nearby buildings. The man was insatiable. There's even a recorded incident, believe it or not, where he sent agents across the empire to find the fattest woman alive. Not the most beautiful, not the most charming, the fattest. Eventually, they found a 330-pound woman nicknamed Sekerper, which literally means piece of candy. Ibrahim was thrilled. He made her his favorite concubine and showered her with gifts, gold, and power. It was more than just a kink. It was a warning sign. His behavior was getting more erratic, more unhinged. He lavished money on jewelry, silks, perfumes, and extravagant gifts. At one point, he ordered all his horses to be fed with sugar cubes instead of hay. He spent more time with his concubines than with his ministers. His council meetings were rare, and when they did happen, he barely understood what was going on. The empire was rotting at the top, and nobody could stop it. Then came the turning point, paranoia. Ibrahim became convinced, without proof, that people were plotting against him. Not just nobles or ministers, but his own wives. He feared they were spies, that they were poisoning him, that they were secretly sleeping with other men. And then he snapped. It started with whispers, A eunuch in the palace allegedly told Ibrahim that one of his concubines had slept with another man. There was no real proof, no investigation, no trial, just the seed of an idea planted in a mind already cracked by years of isolation and delusion. That one whisper was enough. Ibrahim went ballistic. His paranoia turned into rage. He began interrogating the women in his harem, demanding they confess their supposed betrayals. One by one, they denied it. He didn't care. He was convinced they were lying. And then he gave the order. Bind them, all of them, every one. 500 women, concubines, servants, even young girls, were rounded up and dragged out of the palace. Most of them had never left its walls. Now they were being taken to the shores of the Bosphorus Strait. There, in the cold pre-dawn hours, they were tied into sacks, struggling, screaming, crying, some praying, and thrown into the water, one by one, splash, 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 until the strait was littered with bodies bobbing under the moonlight. 500 dead. This wasn't war. It wasn't justice. It was a king's twisted fantasy of betrayal turned into a massacre. Even for an empire that had seen centuries of violence, this was shocking. News of the mass drowning spread quickly across Constantinople. Whispers turned into rumors, and rumors turned into panic. Was the Sultan insane? Was anyone safe? Could the empire survive a ruler who treated human lives like pawns in a sick game? Meanwhile, inside the palace, Ibrahim remained untouched, detached from the consequences. He reportedly believed he had purified the harem, that he'd been surrounded by witches and spies, and now the palace was clean again. But the killings didn't stop there. In the following months, Ibrahim continued his downward spiral. He executed high-ranking officials who displeased him. He accused his Grand Vizier, a powerful advisor, of plotting against him and had him tortured to death. He even ordered the drowning of a new concubine just because she sneezed during dinner. Yes, sneezed. One night, Ibrahim reportedly ordered his guards to toss coins into the sea to see if the fish would swallow them, because he believed the fish were hiding messages from foreign spies. This wasn't just madness. This was dangerous, empire-crumbling madness. And all the while, his mother, Kozum Sultan, watched the horror unfold. Kozum had spent decades protecting the empire. She had placed her sons and grandsons on the throne. She'd advised sultans, run the court, even led armies behind the scenes. But now, she saw that her own son was destroying everything she had built. She tried to reason with him, plead, warn, but Ibrahim wouldn't listen. He'd grown erratic, explosive. Some reports claim he started accusing her, too, believing even his own mother was part of the conspiracy. That's when Kozum made the most painful decision of her life. She turned against her son. For Kozum Sultan, betrayal wasn't easy. This was her own son, her flesh and blood. But she knew something the rest of the empire feared to admit. Ibrahim was too dangerous to rule. The man she once protected was now executing innocent people on a whim, burning through the empire's wealth, and turning the court into a circus of chaos and delusion. So she made her move. Quietly, she began reaching out to allies. High-ranking officials, religious leaders, military commanders, people who had watched in horror as the empire spiraled under Ibrahim's reign. She didn't need to convince them for long. Everyone knew the truth. The only question was, who would dare make the first move? And then the opportunity came. In 1648, the empire was hit by a devastating military defeat in Crete. The economy was collapsing. The Janissaries, elite Ottoman soldiers, were angry over unpaid salaries. The religious scholars, or ulama, had lost faith in Ibrahim's rule. The people were starving. The palace was rotting from the inside out. It was the perfect storm. Kozum reached out to the Sheikh al-Islam, the highest religious authority in the empire. Together, they issued a fatwa, an official Islamic legal ruling, declaring Sultan Ibrahim unfit to rule. That was unprecedented. Removing a sultan was no small thing, but the clerics and soldiers backed Kozum. The Janissaries stormed the palace. There was no bloodshed, no resistance. Ibrahim, still locked in his delusions, didn't even understand what was happening. He was dragged from his chambers and imprisoned in the same cage where he had once lived as a prince. It was a full-circle moment, from a prison cell to a throne, and now back into the shadows. But this time, he wouldn't live to see the light again. The new Sultan, Ibrahim's 6-year-old son Mehmed IV, was placed on the throne, a child ruler propped up by the same people who had taken down his father. But even with a new puppet in place, the question lingered in the court. What do we do with Ibrahim? Keeping him alive was dangerous. He was unpredictable, vengeful, and deeply paranoid. Many feared he could rally support, escape, or spark civil war. He was too unstable to rule and too dangerous to let live. And so, just 10 days after his dethronement, on August 18, 1648, Sultan Ibrahim I was strangled to death in his prison room with a silk cord, a traditional execution method for Ottoman royalty. He was 33 years old. The Mad Sultan's reign had lasted just 8 years, but it left behind a legacy of horror, paranoia, and bloodshed. And then, silence. The Ottoman court never officially explained what happened. No announcement, no grand funeral, no royal mourning. He was gone, erased. No monuments, no statues, no legacy to honor. Just whispers of a ruler who drowned 500 innocent women and was killed by his own mother's orders. Some say his ghost still haunts the Topkapi Palace, the echo of a mind that was never free.